So one of the things is that people might, feel that you have to remember an awful lot or somehow, and it's not a contest like that. So if ever you're listening and feel somewhat overwhelmed, feel free to, raise a finger or something and indicate, try to summarize there if you don't get it. This isn't about a contest to who can remember longer, but by building bridges for people. So if you don't know, I mean, I personally, when I'm corrected, I find that a great learning experience. It's kind of actually fun. So maybe that's a personality flaw that I have. I don't know. Anyway, so we'll start off. I'll be happy to keep time. When I do, I'll kind of do this. I try to not, interrupt the flow. So sometimes, I have an alarm or something. When you see it, just means it's a soft close. It just means that, finish up what you're saying, and we'll try to finish up and then, go on. Okay. Are there any questions particularly?
Bill?
Yeah?
Can you just, again, repeat the main subject we'll be discussing today?
So so the subject for today is how to build the facilitator network.
For XR.
For XR, yes. In other words, how do we go and how do we then reach out to the public? And I believe, from what I've seen, that's what XR is trying to do. Through many means, is communicate to the public about the gravity of the situation. And our usual media and other things like that are just not addressing the issue well enough. And so the facilitators in Army is an effort to explain what XR is, how democracy can work differently, and also try to, make people participants, because that's really what democracy is about, is participating, and, things like that. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So does anybody would like to speak first? Let's start. All right.
I can go.
Okay. And you can pick anyone, but if you want, you can speak to me, and then we'll sort of role model it, and then, we'll just get going. Generally, the first round, we kind of get everybody in there, and after that, you kind of might want to mix it up a bit. I mean, whoever you want to speak to. Okay. All right, Eva, I'm listening.
Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
I am interested about being facilitator for XR network.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I realize I don't know enough. I don't know how to become a facilitator.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know that I can't talk to people about this. So I find myself setting up 2 agendas for on this. Learn more about how to be a XR facilitator, and process on how to share this with my friends or my circles.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm hearing that you're very interested in this, but you're kind of lost in the process of becoming a facilitator. It's not clear to you yet what it entails, what it's all about. So then you're trying to. It's important for you to find out, and so then you want to learn to become a facilitator, and then beyond that, you want to learn to see how you might engage your friends and a wider group of people to participate.
Yes, thank you. I feel fully heard now.
Okay, you got more time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
Okay.
Okay. The more I join the meetings, I like online meetings. I like Zoom, and I use Zoom for my own job. Where I find myself is that I could really use some help on listening better and hunting for the ways that I would really like to reflect back to people.
sometimes I feel because English is my second language,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to learn how to do this in Turkish, which is my mother language.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like sentences are just flying away.
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm listening, oh my goodness, I'd better reflect that. But in the end, I find myself, I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I want to go to a place, reach to a place where I can really listen calm
Mm-hmm.
and reflect as I would like to.
Mm-hmm. So you like the Zoom meetings. You've used Zoom for a while, and so this format is, you find effective, and you like it. And what you're looking for is really to improve your listening skills and facilitation skills, and in English, that presents some barriers because the vocabulary will go past your head, and you won't get it. So you understand that you'd like to do it in your native language, which is Turkish, and where you could have like a much more, a deeper experience, and the language barrier is not there, and to really, have that experience of listening deeply.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to thank you. I feel heard.
Okay.
I'd like to do it both in Turkish and English, actually.
Okay. So you like to do it in Turkish to give you that, like a deeper feeling and less language barrier, but also English as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Is that it?
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
so.
Okay. You don't have to. You have more time, but that's well. I'll kind of let you know. But it doesn't mean you have to. There's no have tos here.
Okay.
Great. All right. So you feel fully heard?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Great. Okay. All right. I'll pick Peter. Will you listen to me?
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Peter. Well, I think Eva presents some real food for thought as we start to connect with people around the world who have better language skills than I do. Certainly, I speak English and Pig Latin, and that's not that doesn't travel well. Oh, well, English does, but Pig Latin not so much. I'll stop there.
So Eva presents an interesting challenge, did you say, for people around the world?
Well, no. Well, she doesn't present a challenge in that it's a difficulty, but as I've talked to people from around the world, I've come up with this whole language issue.
Right. So there are various language issues,
right,
with people from around the world.
Right, and people, are kind of humble, and they apologize for not speaking English so well. And I live in a very sort of ethnocentric, it's like the United States. It's all about us, and so I find we have like a language arrogance, and so I really appreciate people who have the courage to attempt this. It says something about their inner character that I really admire.
So I think you're expressing some appreciation for people who are joining this circle where English is not their first language, and expressing some gratitude for them to speak their mind and speak up about the challenges.
Right, and that. Yeah, thank you. That's and that speaks to a deeper understanding of what the circle process is, because as in my experience and opinion, and that is because it's not about what's said or even the topic. I mean, that's fine, but it's about the connections that we're making. Something else is going on here that is not just about the language, and that is not just about what you see on screen. What we're doing is uncovering, I think, a deep need for human community. And I'll stop there.
Right. So I think you're acknowledging something beyond the language, something around building community and connecting with each other.
Right. So if anybody's watching this and English is your second language, I encourage you to join, because something else is going on here. It's not about just understanding the words and the content, but it's about opening your heart and listening to people. I'll stop there.
So again, it's about not just about what you've got to say, but it's about listening and developing relationships with other people, and opening your heart to other people.
Right. And apropos of that, then there's a little French, right? And then there's then how do we build the facilitator? Sorry, not army. That's the old thing, network. And what I think that is welcoming people in and making them part of the community. In other words, whatever the interaction is, if you think of you go to the store or something like that, and somebody listens to you and hears you, you feel good about that experience. Maybe they see that you need help with your shopping bags or something else, or maybe they see in your line, they see that you have 2 items and they have 15,000, and so they let you go first or whatever it is. And so those particular things are things that build community. And we should be looking for sort of a format that starts to recognize and honor that interaction.
Right. So I think you're talking about how to build that sense of community and how to make people feel empowered, make people feel good so they want to come back again. To do that through deep listening and hearing people properly.
Great. Thanks, Peter. I feel fully heard, and that was pretty good for the first time there, just jumping in there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. No problem. Okay, Chris.
Yeah.
Would you like to...
I'm listening.
You're listening, great.
As Fraser would say.
Absolutely. So this is my second call. As I said, sort of in my introduction, I've been around this space for a long time. I dedicated my life to it really since 2003, to democracy especially, and community organising since about 2008. And since then, I've been building a sort of suite of digital tools, and then going out into communities, geographic communities, schools and colleges, and trying to sort of improve the democratic processes in those communities and organisations.
Okay. What I'm hearing is this is your second call. You've been doing this for quite some time, since around about 2003. And you are coming up with digital tools that you want to take out to schools and colleges to include younger people into what's happening.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so predominantly it kind of starts with the digital, but they enable then these face-to-face processes and these dialogue processes. So it's both. It's digital plus dialogue, but the digital sort of underpins and holds everything together over a period of time. So you might have a succession, let's say, of people's assemblies, and it would be the digital that would be the thing that actually held that together and consolidated it.
Right. So it's not just about the digital, it's about face-to-face dialogue. The digital actually underpins the dialogue and is helpful as a basis for further communication and recording of information.
So my optimism lies in us potentially co-creating more complex tools and a bigger system, really, to be able to underpin the way that we govern ourselves, the way that we organise together. I'll stop there.
So this is a start towards co-creating more complex tools so that we have better ideas about how we can govern ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So, I refer back to the placard that says system change, not climate change. My question is who's going to build that system? No government's going to build it for us. No local authority is going to build it for us. I see it as a project that we should be taking on collectively. And there are certain people that have made a start. And, a starting point for this sort of future democracy would be potentially to consolidate those and then to train up the XR groups in how to start to implement those case studies, and that involves being a facilitator.
Right. Systems change. It's a system change, if anything else, and it's very unlikely that the government are ever going to be able to do this. So it is a case of coming together in new groups of people, so that we can consolidate and train individuals to go out and inform the public of what XR is trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, just as an example, I think the technology as an example, I don't want to focus totally on technology, but as I say, I think it underpins, if we build the right tech, then it's going to enable lots of people's assemblies. It's going to be enable lots of citizens' assemblies, a lot better governance and open and transparent budgeting and all of this sort of stuff. And we should embark on that, but, you know, see it as a massive project. You think of something like Amazon, that took 10 years to build to become functional. You know, really the sort of transaction that we're talking about with our governance, with priorities and working groups and crowdsourcing and all of this sort of stuff is far more complex in a sense than the Amazon transaction of someone having a product and someone else wanting to buy it. So that's the sort of project I think we should be embarking on. And it's a massive project, but I think there are enough people around the world, enough resources to be able to make it happen.
Okay, what I'm hearing is we've got the text just an example, but it's developing the right technology so that we can communicate effectively across particular assemblies, citizens' assemblies, etc. And then taking that complexity into building a whole system which involves the economics of it, budgeting, that kind of thing. It's a huge project that's even bigger than Amazon, and will take some time to do, probably 10 years, like Amazon took to build itself. And it's something that we need to get started now.
Yeah, just to clarity on that last point, I don't necessarily think it will take as long as Amazon necessarily, but I'm just saying it's a potentially long-term project, but we could get started now.
Right, so it's not particularly long-term project, but hopefully it's a short-term project, but we need to get started.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Are you done?
Yes, thank you. I feel heard.
Good, thank you. So I now choose
anybody you want.
I'm going to be choosing. Who was the first one to go? Is it Bill?
Ava. Ava was the first.
Ava. Okay. Shall I go back to Ava?
Sure.
Yeah. I'm listening. Chris.
Okay. Oh yes, I'm supposed to be speaking.
And I'm supposed to be listening.
Yes. Great. So I'm very interested to. This is my first time on the call, as you probably are aware. I've just completed the Terry Patton course that took place during the course of 2019. And that course was based on his book, A New Republic of the Heart. And in that book, if you haven't read it, it is all about getting people activated. The expression used is sacred activism, in order to change what's happening in the world.
Yeah, Chris, I hear
I'll hold it there.
I hear you saying this is your first time, and you shared that you just finished a study, I say, or like a workshop of like Terry Patton,
Terry Patton workshop, yeah.
Yeah, which was mostly about activation, a sacred activation of people's force, would you say?
Yeah. getting people activated. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly to what XR is about, Terry Patton and his people. He's from out of the Integral Institute in Colorado, and there are a whole bunch of people there that are realizing that we have to globally take a new path in the expression of democracy.
Mm-hmm. And again, I hear you say, you shared about people in Colorado who's getting to realize that there is a way of globally awakening, and as like an integral institute, that people realize that they can care more about Terry Patton's teachings and XR, that, and I heard you say this is actually what Terry Patton is teaching is actually what XR is about too.
That's just about it. It's he is teaching on the course that there is a need for more groups like XR to begin a process of changing the democratic process. Obviously, democracy in the United States, and as we've seen in the UK, is in need of reform.
Like
time's up, I think.
I hear you again say in the need of changing democracy, and well, obviously I tried not taking notes, and it seems I lost everything. I agreed with everything you said, but this is what's happening. I didn't take note, and it's not here anymore. It's in my heart, but not in my brain.
I understand that. I feel heard, and I reflect back what Bill was saying, that it's not what you reflect back or what I say. It's just building an empathic understanding of where we're both coming from. But you did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, so it's my turn now?
Your turn.
Okay. Peter, would you listen to me?
Hi, Eva. Yeah, sure.
Okay. With this, building an XR facilitator group, I am wondering what is a good way to reach people in like a system or an agenda.
So you're wondering what's a good way to reach people, and what you would talk about? Is it what would be the agenda when you do talk with them?
Yeah, I'm wondering on like a reach out model on, at least for my circles or for my friends. And I'm wondering if I should think about a 3-way of reaching people. Timing is important. When are the XR facilitator groups or empathy cafe meetings are? If knowing them ahead, knowing when the meetings are, I'm wondering if that will help to invite more people.
Yeah. So you're wondering what the engagement model is, how to reach out to your circles and your friends, how to engage them. I think you're suggesting potentially 3 ways we're about to hear, and timing is important, and potentially aligning with the meetings.
And yeah, first one is timing, and second way that I kind of feel like I want to go is emotions. If I could reflect or talk about people's emotions about XR or empathy group, empathy cafe, if I could talk to their emotions, it might be more effective and they will feel the need to be involved.
Right, so the first point is around timing, and the second point is around talking about emotions. And do you think that that might be more of a connection with people if we talk about that and show that you're listening in that way?
Yeah. And the last third way I would be thinking about bringing in an agenda with my friends or my circles would be speaking or planning into their needs. The need to be heard, just like Bill said, the need to be understood, and the need to be talking about their own needs. So I guess that means talking about more subjects depending on the future participants. Just like you said, like global warming, like there are things will be more effective if we could kind of like present things as like people's needs.
Right, so the first point was timing, the second point was around emotions, and the third one was around speaking about people's own personal needs, maybe personal and collective, perhaps. So the need for people to be heard, to be understood, but also for their own issues to be understood as well. And this is likely to broaden out the agenda, so we're probably going to be talking about a lot more things other than just climate change, global warming, that sort of thing. Probably going to be talking more about with the well-being of community as well as the well-being of the environment.
Yeah. And one other thing, I really like to listen to that video before this training, which really gives brief explanations in a very easy way. So that was very helpful.
Right, so the video was really helpful to explain the process.
Yeah.
And you might use that perhaps in your own meetings.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I feel heard.
Great, thank you. Bill. Great. Yeah, so as you know, Bill, we've been on a call a couple of times, so you've got a bit of a...
Yeah, I was embarrassed about that. I forgot. And then I remember when you said that, I'm sorry, I'm breaking the rules, but you have a lot of wonderful ideas.
Is that bad?
I'm not reflecting. Yeah, it's, you know, it's as bad as, you know, I mean, no one will come to your door. But but I just had a thing because I remember really liking your ideas, and then I forget, lost it. So anyway,
I wrote it all up in the meeting notes anyway.
I know. It was just my bad, and I felt bad because I was so impressed, and I didn't remember. So that's on me.
Well, this is an interesting thing, isn't it? So there's an interesting point to focus on.
Okay.
Right. Let's just say, as an example, right, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, someone like me, or it could be anyone, right, comes to these meetings with a potential part of the solution, right? It's not going to be the whole thing, of course, right? But it might be a key bit. And then even though, obviously, empathy circles, you know, help you to reflect, so they help to emphasize what the point is being made, so everybody's hearing and we're taking notes. There's still obviously the potential for that. There's still a lot going on in people's heads that those things still disappear and they're not getting picked up on. So it's a really, how on earth do we plan to actually progress if when people come to these meetings with solutions that we can't in some way either consolidate them or act on them, or, you know what I mean? Like, how do we move forward if we aren't able to bring that in?
Right. And so you were making the point that even though we're practicing listening and we are getting benefits here, there's a lot of things going on in your heads and people forget and things like that. So your concern is if somebody comes to one of these circles with an idea, then how do we act on that idea? How do we preserve the idea? And how do we start to make progress?
Right. You can answer that one as well if you want. That was kind of a question, yeah. So I guess this is my angst, and I have this angst is that obviously because I've been working in this space for so long, and that I don't have all the solutions, but I have some, right? Because anyone that just works in this space for 10 or 15 years, right, is bound to have some solutions, and we know other people that have got solutions as well, right? The people that are doing the people's assemblies, the people that have done flat pack democracy, the people that are building open source tools here and there. There are different solutions, and they fit at different parts of the puzzle. They are different solutions, and there needs to be some sort of process for consolidating them into the system change that we want to see, right? And I think if we can find that mechanism of slotting these pieces together, then that might actually start the ball rolling in thinking, we actually can build this system that we want to see.
So you're saying that there are lots of people with lots of experience who don't have the whole solution, but have part of the solution. And the key right now is to be able to fit those together into kind of a comprehensive, understandable whole in order to create the change that we need. And so the question is that what's the process to get there? How do we get those ideas and get them heard, and then reality test them and see where they fit?
Right. So we've been, our social enterprise have been building these tools. We've got case studies that could be scaled up. So we could be training people through Zoom like this. We could be training any number of people how to do, number one, how to identify priorities in a community. And that community could be any type of community. It could be the XR groups themselves. That's my suggestion, is that what we try to do is we try to be the change in that we try to enact these tools and processes, digital and dialogue, face-to-face and digital, inside the XR groups themselves to build up that experience. And then as people actually see it working, and as people see their own XR group become more functional and more action-orientated and what have you, more listening-orientated, then at that point, people will gain the confidence, I think, and naturally start to want to broaden out to schools and other groups and geographic communities.
Okay, so you're seeing that the Zoom technology can be used for connecting and for dialogue, and you see that one way to get these ideas and develop them is to really encourage this dialogue both within XR, but not only in an XR community, but the practice of engaging in dialogue itself. And then that's a way to basically, when enough people do that, you can kind of get the 100th monkey critical mass sort of thing, and then people would feel comfortable and then expand it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously at some point we've got to move beyond the dialogue, right, into action. And then ideally then these circles then are the sort of the feedback of how the action went.
Right.
Otherwise it's just going to be ongoing dialogue. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but so there's like an agile approach. We agree, yes, these are some processes we're going to try. We train people, the facilitators, how to implement those. They go out into the real world, they have a go, and then we come back into these types of circles and we're feeding back and trying to improve those processes.
Right. So you see that this process is important, but basically it's incomplete. And so the other part is the way when people take the ideas in these circles, then take them out into the real world, reality test them, then bring them back to see how we might need to modify them or improve them or expand on them.
Right. Otherwise, we're just going to be a talking shop, right? And I'm totally with you about developing relationships and stuff, but I can't see that alone is going to solve our climate crisis at the speed that we need to.
Right. So it's great to talk, and I think you see it as one part of the solution, but it's not the only part, and we need to go and to be able to actually create change.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't know if I've got any more time left, but
it's about over. If you have
okay.
something short,
no, that's fine. Yeah. No,
okay.
We'll.
All right.
Thank you.
Let's see. Sure. All right. Eva.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I got, because I was feeling guilty about not. As soon as he mentioned that, Peter mentioned that, I was going, "Oh my God, yeah, I remember that." And that's sort of, and that's the human condition. So in that case, I sort of fell short of my own standards because I like good ideas and I pride myself in remembering them, but I failed my own standard there. And the question is that as we move forward in democracy, when that happens, do I roll up into a fetal ball and go away, or do I kind of laugh, address the issue, and then move on? We'll see in the future, but hopefully the second time, my memory will improve. So I'll stop there.
I hear you saying you're talking about the human condition that while communicating with Peter, your history of you realized actually you remembered your history with Peter.
Right.
And again, I hear you feeling short of your own standards and you being curious on how to do things more effectively and more, I'm trying to remember the word. I can remember your word. I don't remember my version of it, but more effective solution, maybe.
Yeah, but also in a larger, because I know we were talking about the Roger Hallam comments yesterday and things like that. But when we make a mistake, like I'm a retired special education teacher, and and I worked with really extreme kids. So when they got to me, they had failed in 3 or 4 places. So, failure was happening. And I said, I don't care. Fail. It's, I said, be successful is fine and failure is fine. What wasn't fine for me in my classroom is a give up attitude, because that turns failure into success. And so I think that as a culture, that kind of concept of resilience, of acknowledging in humility you made a mistake, but then not getting down on yourself and then figuring okay, how do we go forward here? We're going to become better. It's sort of like I guess an ethos or a feeling that I like. So the idea that we learn from our failures and we get better. That's a summary of what I said.
Mm-hmm. I hear you saying that in order to really learn from our failures and getting better, we shouldn't people shouldn't be letting their failing to become a success. And the way that we let our failing to become a success is taking failing too seriously. And again, that's my area too. You mentioned you work with special education kids, and there is a lot of failing there. But like taking failing as like the end result is the main failing. So success and failing could be I heard you saying success and failing could be taken in the same path as long as you don't give up and keep trying.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well, this is easy when I am involved with the subject. It was very easy to catch up with the conversation.
Oh, good. Yeah. And key to that, I think, is humor too. I lived through the through the '60s, and and when the '60s started, there was a certain kind of juice. There was Paul Krasner in The Realist. He was an excellent satirist. There was just a bunch of other people. There were comedy. A lot of innovations came up. And then it kind of turned into this, which I don't have a problem with, the spiritual movement or the New Age movement, but the juice and the humor seem to be lost in some ways. So I'll stop there.
Yeah. Well, I heard you saying humor is a big key. Mm-hmm. And in your perspective, or in your experience, 60s and your point of view about 60s is there was a lot of there was a lot of Jews.
The Jews too. There were Jews there. Yeah, the Jews around. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a lot of Jews, and I heard like you meant comedy and innovation there, where like people were making a lot of fun of each other in a way. And like nowadays, or maybe after that, I heard you saying, like with spiritual movements coming up a little bit, I heard you kind of have a feeling of, are we losing that comedy and innovation spirit and stop making fun of ourselves as we used to do in 60s?
Yeah. Thank you, Eva. I feel fully heard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chris, would you listen to me now?
Oh, go on then.
Yeah, I'd like to, now 60s came up, I'd like to bring it to 80s now. And I'd like to bring into a method that I use with my coaching clients. I work with young adults or teenagers with ADHD or families. So the way I call myself as a coach is, I like calling myself an authentic story designer.
Sorry, you say that again?
Authentic story designer.
Authentic.
That's what I called myself. I'll stop here for now.
Okay. So you want to go back to the 80s rather than 60s? 60s was more fun.
Really? Oh, I knew that.
I mean, you're involved with coaching and have clients dealing with ADHD, and you call yourself an authentic story
designer.
Okay. And that's what you call yourself when you're coaching these families with an ADHD person.
And the reason I like stories or 60s or 80s is it's just like things are in an ADHD brain where things are moving so fast and ideas are spread super fast and results or opinions are amazing all there, just like Peter was mentioning. Like, yeah, things are there. Maybe our solutions, our ideas are there, but it's so hard to keep track of them. And right. Like with focusing on a story or a superhero in the history that we know of, I can go through a person's imagination or goals using a superhero model.
Okay. Yes, you're very much into storytelling, preferably from the 60s or 80s, because that's a time when you recollect things moving very fast, and you're probably right, whoever said it, Peter, I think, where things are moving and solutions actually get lost because things are moving very quickly. So to get across to the ADHD person, some of the solutions to their own issues, you develop stories that are a better way of slowing things down for them, and maybe use a superhero model so that they can identify with someone outside of themselves, I'm guessing here.
Yeah. And the way I would like to connect it with now Excel Facilitator Network is talking about history and discussing about history is a little harder, at least for me. But talking about a story or a superhero's success or failure is easier. So a big example I so enjoy using is Alice in Wonderland. Like how in most of the stories, there is always a failing point. There's always like this, either the superhero of the story makes some kind of mistakes, but doesn't give up and find a way to belong to the situation. And then after belonging and staying there, there comes a forgiveness and continuing with your own life. So with XR facilitating groups, or how I would like to really picture empathy cafe meetings is if we can, just like Bill mentioned, if we can talk about failing or making mistakes of our cultures, of our backgrounds, of our world, maybe start talking about them and personalizing the success of our childhood stories, maybe, or our superheroes.
Okay, well, that was a long one. Yeah. In order to get back to, I think you were telling me, in order to get back to what you want to do and connect up in the facilitator network, is the idea of the history of the world. Our own history as people, and to translate that over into storytelling. You already use, and we can use, all sorts of superhero characters, or characters like Alice in Wonderland, or whatever, other famous stories, because these stories always tell, or almost always tell, of a failure, and then overcoming that failure so that the person can realize that they can go on and be successful in their life, provided they understand the message of the failure.
Yeah.
Would that be about right?
Yes. And I just was mentioning that we could bring that conversation to XR facilitators, or we could use that maybe to reach more people from different backgrounds. And yeah.
Yes. Well, what I'm hearing from you is that, yes, and storytelling is a very good way of communicating across different cultures, because basically each culture has very similar stories, so they just have different heroes. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Did I reflect what you were saying?
Yes, you did, and yeah, I was not so easy on you. Sorry. This is when you lose things with your focus, with that super fast thinking. So this was an example, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm understanding that it is tricky. Oh, right. Me talking, and Bill, do you want to listen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just take up on a few of the things that came about. I mean, we might start with the storytelling. Actually, it's something that's become part of my work, as I facilitate groups of people who are wanting to know what's going on in the world, and what I'm trying to help people with is their own personal shift in consciousness as we go through the collective shift in consciousness.
Mm-hmm. So you use you like storytelling as a modality for communicating, and as a way to facilitate people's personal transitions through a time of societal change.
Right. Thanks. And the reason for this is, and this goes back to something that was mentioned earlier, it is important, I think, to have face-to-face groups, because in face-to-face groups there's a better energy connection, there's a better chance through body language and everything else, and you can see people's eyes better.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That you can really get to the a deeper connection with people, who can then bring out their own issues.
Mm-hmm. So you're seeing that an essential part of the puzzle, sort of as Peter said, was face-to-face groups, that's important, the deeper and the more immediate and the more sensory input you have in a face-to-face thing, encounter, is important and adds quality and depth to the interaction, and that's important.
Yeah. So the technology is developing, but isn't quite there yet. This is why we have problems with people with their sound and all that kind of thing. So that this kind of Zoom technology is a wonderful way of beginning the process of getting people together over huge distances. But I feel it's very important to get people together face to face, so that you do develop a stronger connection. And that would be in local communities, obviously, so there's no great distance for people to come to be face to face. Okay.
So you're saying that you like the Zoom technology, and it's been really helpful in bringing together people over vast distances. But what you're really seeing is that this process going and the communication goes locally, where people can then get in face to face and have deeper relationships and interactions.
Great, and that then leads with the deeper connection. That then leads to what Peter was talking about, which is there are always solutions, and Eva was saying this in a way that there are solutions come out from all sorts of areas, and I'm reminded by Ken Wilber's work in that there's always some truth in anyone's own interpretation of what's going on, and they also have their own interpretation of a solution, and to get that out and then down and recorded and then enacted upon, I think I agree with Peter that this is a necessary next step. Otherwise, we have the danger of simply falling into discussion groups. Yeah.
Right. So you're agreeing with Peter that we can't just be simply discussing things, and then we need to really look at solutions moving ahead. And I'm feeling I'm missing it was pretty dense there. I kind of got the gist, but I missed something there. So correct me then.
It's a question of I think important to have face-to-face groups,
right,
where people can express their own issues, but it's also not imperative that they express solutions. But once they have expressed their own issues, they will feel more confident in expressing ideas about solutions.
I get it. So I remember that I missed that part about Ken Wilber and saying that in anybody's experience, there are some solutions there. But you're saying that, and the solutions are important, and they should, and we can't just have discussion that goes on and doesn't lead to action, but that what the discussions do is make people feel more comfortable and confident in themselves, so they can participate with much more ease and ease in the situation.
Yeah, exactly. So they're much more able to then get themselves into that second stage of actually thinking about solutions and what to do.
Got it. So you're saying
once they've been heard.
Right. So then the comfort then creates the ability then for them to think about solutions, because they're not dealing with stress and emotional doubt and things like that.
And their own personal issues, yeah.
Right, their own
they
personal
get
issues.
help.
Right. And then what I also was hearing is that the benefit of this face-to-face was the fact that people are more intimate, and so they can work out their personal issues and get beyond them, and you feel that face-to-face group is very good for that.
I do. Is my time up?
Yeah, basically. But that's all right.
I heard the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, thanks. Yeah.
Any last? Sure. Okay. Any last thoughts or anything?
I did have something at the back of my mind, but it's gone again, so I might remember it later.
All right. Great. All right. I'll talk to Peter.
Hi there. Yep.
Hi. So I was thinking about this, how do we do that? And teachers have a very good, I think, model for it. We would be taught to do like a 5-step lesson plan. And I'm not saying you have to have 5 steps or whatever version of it is the sort of holy grail of lesson plans. But one of the issues is that we always worked from the outcome back. And so we said, so we want to teach this child to read. Where are they? What skills do they need to read? And the goal is to read independently. And so therefore, then we organize things, and that helps you organize things very well, because the question is, does this particular technique or what we're doing contribute to our stated outcome goal? I'll stop there.
Yeah, so you said teachers have a really good model. You didn't actually say, I don't think, what they have a good model for. So I was lacking a little bit of context at the beginning.
Okay.
But the idea of sort of lesson plans, and then stating an outcome, and then deciding what skills are needed to achieve that outcome.
Right, and I was emphasizing the outcome because that's the stated, because that helps you organize and prioritize your techniques. The other part of it, the 5, is like gathering materials, doing introductions, preparing people for there's some of those things which you can use. But specifically in the context of this conversation, I was looking at starting from your goal and working backwards.
Yeah, right. So you think that potentially we should be identify what our goals are, and then the desired outcomes, and then potentially working up then the lesson plans and lesson modules to enable us to develop the skills required to achieve those. Right,
and I think that could be like, for instance, in climate change, I was watching a documentary, and it was something like Mysterious Things from Space. And in the United States, at night, in the middle of the Midwest desert, all of a sudden, there's a vast amount of lights that is as great an area as Chicago that lights up, but there's no city there. So I'll stop there. Okay.
Other than the Midwest desert.
Right, okay.
Lots
So what
of
happened
light.
is, in order to prioritize as far as climate change, basically what I saw was that there was these mysterious lights, and what the lights were as big as the suburban area of Chicago, one of the largest things, but there's no city there. What was there and what was lighting up? Oil fields. And what happens is that the oil and gas companies, if gasoline is high and natural gas is low, they just burn off the natural gas. And they sell, and they do that. That seems to me, if we could stop that practice, that would be a big step towards mitigating climate change. I'll stop there.
Yeah. So there were these mysterious lights in the Midwest desert that would come and go, and what you realized eventually was that these were the oil fields burning off their natural gas. So what you're suggesting is potentially this could be one of the sort of outcomes, and then we need to sort of work our way back in terms of how we stop that.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. I feel fully heard.
Great. Who haven't I chosen before? Eva, have you listened to me?
Not yet.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. Yeah. So, I would like to think, because I think in these conversations, we do make some progress. And then my concern is then obviously there's another call, right? The next call is in 2 weeks, what is January the 7th or whatever it is. And we're starting again. We're starting some new people, but then some older people, or I say older, I don't mean older, I mean, people that have been on the more calls. I think this is an issue, not just for our group, but for all local groups as well, where you've got a local XR group, for instance, you've got, say, a small number of newbies coming in that need to be sort of introduced to the process. And then you've got maybe 3/4 of the room that is people that have been there for long term and that want to really sort of try to figure out what they want to do and get on with stuff. So I think this is an issue that needs to be sort of solved in some way, in the way that the groups work.
Yeah, Peter, I hear you. You feel like this conversation is a progress, and at the same time you have concerns on these two groups of people who have been involved with XR meetings or facilitating, and for a long time, and this other group of people who are new to the process. And I hear you are a little concerned on how these two groups of people with maybe different motivations or different stage of knowledge about XR will be processing or will be continuing for a better result in your goal, maybe, or hopes?
Yeah. So maybe it's already part of the process and I missed it. But is the plan to just keep doing empathy circles for however long? 3 months, 6 months, till when? Or is there a plan to sort of work up the model? Because obviously you're going to continue to get new people into the circles, and then you're going to have other people that might have done 5 or 10 or 15, right? And I mean, I feel like from the conversation that we've been having, for instance, there's some cohesion in terms of what we want to do, right? So obviously we're talking about, Chris is talking about bringing people together,
remembering. It's too much.
Hey.
Hello.
Okay,
hello,
Peter,
everyone.
I heard you.
There we are.
I agree with you.
Shall I just keep talking?
So
Okay,
you were broke. you were stopped.
Right.
Rudely interrupted.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Interrupted. Yeah.
so what we want to do is we're going to have a couple questions we're going to go through, and the first one is just sort of a debrief of what your experience was. And actually, do you want to take it over, Bill? You were going to
Sure.
just calling on people and telling them what we're wanting for this.
Okay. So we're just doing a brief, in 30 seconds or so, summarization of your experience and anything else that sort of happened, but really addressed towards how the circle, addressed your concerns in the dialogue.
And also any tangible steps you're wanting to take. So it's for building the facilitator network, and any tangible steps that you'd like to take. And I think since we're a smaller group, we could probably do a minute at least,
Okay.
Because we'll have plenty of time here for.
All right.
And that'll be the first round. And that'll be another question after this round too.
Okay. All right. Is there anybody who would like to start?
I'll start if I
Sure.
know what the question is again.
The question is that, to harvest and tell about your experience, but also the focus is like next tangible steps, and what we can do to facilitate the facilitators network. Sorry for that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yes, I've enjoyed my first session with you guys. I haven't really got any reservations, because it's